Here.
Bratton.
Here.
Hageman.
Here.
Mosley. Razor.
Here.
I make a motion that we go into executive session. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session. Okay, sorry for the delay. I'm trying to get organized here. First up is Senate Bill 724. I move that we take up Senate Bill 724. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill that we heard relating to financial statements. This is Senator Hageman's bill. We do have a committee substitute ending in .02C, and I move that we adopt the substitute. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? And Senator Hageman, would you like to explain the differences in the substitute for us?
Yeah, so this just so what this deals with is financial statements and some entities out there. You know, I was a county clerk in a third-class county. Sometimes it's hard to get some of these political subdivisions to, really do what they need to do. And so, filing a financial disclosure annually is one of those things. I had an instance where the subdivision that, I'm explaining too much on it. I just need to explain the changes. But a subdivision that had gone for years without being able to do this, the notices were going to a person whose wife had passed away, and the gentleman was, I think, disabled, from dementia. And so it basically going unresponded. So what we do there is try to give the director some discretion to be able to adjust these, fines, these penalties that don't like. So like this is an entity that, like over the years, I've accrued a fine that was like 20 times the amount that they ever took in. So if they were ever to do any good for the people of their area, the fine would just keep them from doing it. So we need to make it reasonable. We need to, adjust it, and this would give the director the ability to adjust some of these down. And so these changes are changes that came from the department, requested changes that they asked.
Senator, I might add that I had the same issue with some of my constituents too, and I think this is a good idea to get this cleared up. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the ayes have it. I now move that we vote Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 724 do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Huff.
Aye.
Bean.
Aye.
Bratton.
Aye.
Hageman.
Aye.
Mosley. Razor.
By your vote of 7-0, you have do passed. Senate Bill 724 with Senate Committee Substitute. All right, next up we have Senate Bill 845. I move that we take up Senate Bill 845. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. This is Senator Esslinger's bill that we heard last week, well, actually a couple of weeks ago, I think, relating to county financial statements and how they publish those in the paper. I now move that we do pass Senate Bill 845. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Huff.
Aye.
Bean.
Aye.
Bratton.
Aye.
Hageman.
Aye.
Mosley. Razor.
By your vote of 7-0, you have do passed Senate Bill 845. Senator Esslinger had requested that we move this, or that we vote this bill consent. I'm kind of getting an indication. we'll give this a try. I move that we vote Senate Bill 845 out of committee, do pass consent. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford,
Aye.
Huff,
Aye.
Bean,
Aye.
Bratton, Hegeman,
Aye.
Mosley, Razor.
By your vote of 7-0, you have moved Senate Bill 845, do pass consent. Next up will be Senator Huff, and that is Senate Bill 759. That's relating to the local sales tax. And let me flip over here. All right, I move that we take up Senate Bill 759. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Again, this is the bill that we heard a couple of weeks ago dealing with the local sales tax, putting the cap, basically, Senator Huff, I guess, do you have anything you want to say about the bill? Maybe explain.
Yeah, just real quick, I think the committee's familiar, this would establish a cap and get this legislature out of the process of, what I always call enabling legislation for every little library district, ambulance district, fire district, proposal that community wants to put in front of their own voters. That's all. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I move that we vote Senate Bill 759 out of committee, do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Senator Razor.
I have a very long discussion here. No, I just wanted to say that I did have some folks back at home with some minor concerns. I've not been able to talk to them yet, but I'm going to vote to get this out of committee, and hopefully we can work that out later.
Further discussion? All right. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford,
Aye.
Huff,
No, I'm just kidding.
Bean, Senator Bratton. No. Hegeman. Mosley. Razor.
By your vote of 6 ayes and 1 no, you have do passed Senate Bill 759. Next up, we have Senate Bill 743, and I move that we do pass Senate Bill 743. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. This is the bill that I presented a couple of weeks ago dealing with the public safety tax, allowing the cities of Clinton and Lincoln to vote on that public safety sales tax. And I move that we do pass Senate Bill 743. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford,
Aye.
Huff,
Aye.
Bean,
Aye.
Bratton.
No.
Hegeman.
Aye.
Mosley. Razor.
By your vote of 6-1, you have do passed Senate Bill 743. And the last bill we're going to vote on is SJR 46. And I move that we take up SJR 46. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. This is the SJR that was relating to the election of county assessors that Senator Searpoint had before our body, or before this committee a couple of weeks ago. I did ask him to stop in, and if we have any questions, he is here to do that. So I move that we vote SJR 46 out of committee, do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford,
Aye.
Huff,
Aye.
Bean,
Aye.
Bratton.
Aye.
Hegeman.
Aye.
Mosley. Razor.
By your vote of 7-0, you have do passed SJR 46. I move that we go out of executive session. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. And we are out of executive session. We have 2 bills up today. Senator Onder, I'm going to do mine briefly and then let you fill in a lot of gaps. And I'll just come back and run the committee after I present mine. Mine's pretty basic, and then we'll let you go. And for the benefit of the people here to testify, These bills are very similar in nature, so I think it will be easier. We're gonna present both bills, or both resolutions, and then when you come forward to testify in favor or against, please designate which one you're testifying on, which way you're testifying, and if it's both or one or the other, and I think it'll be easier that way than going through this whole process twice. So I'm gonna start with SJR 37. Mr. Vice President, would you take over, please?
Madam Chairwoman, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Sandy Crawford, District 28. Thank you for letting me present SJR 37 to you. This bill does one thing. It's dealing with initiative petitions, and instead of the current 50% plus one that it takes to pass those at the ballot box, this would increase that to 60%. I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can allow Senator Onder to come up as well, and then we'll answer questions, or I can answer questions from up there as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none.
All right, Senator Onder, if you want to come on up, and then I'll go back to the chair, and we'll maybe tag team this.
Sounds good.
Okay, and Senator Onder has SGR 31, and Senator, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Bob Onder, representing District 2 in St. Charles County. In the United States, we do not have a direct democracy. We have a constitutional republic. But over time, more and more out-of-state special interests have come to the state of Missouri and essentially fought amendments to our Constitution. The so-called Clean Missouri Initiative petition in 2018 was an especially egregious example of this. And this year we have another out-of-state effort to change the way we elect our public officials, so-called ranked choice voting. Among other problems with our current very easy initiative petition process is that it allows the IP proponents to essentially ignore rural Missouri, collecting the great majority of their signatures along the I-70 corridor and ignoring a couple of our congressional districts. Another problem is that constitutional changes are often approved with very low turnout. Examples of this, and these are issues that I supported, were those to protect an individual's electronic communications privacy. It passed with fewer than 18% of our state's registered voters, and Right to Farm passed with 12.3% of our registered voters. Again, I approved of both of these initiatives, but it seems kind of incongruous that such a small percentage of our electorate is amending our Constitution. Only about half of states, 26 to be exact, allow an initiative petition process at all. Only 14 states, again, only 14 states allow direct initiative for constitutional changes. And the rest have a process that involves the legislature. I take that back. Only 14 have a direct IP process at all, and only 18 allow an IP process to amend the Constitution, and even then, most of those involve the legislature. And even fewer allow constitutional changes with a simple majority vote. So in Missouri, having one of the easiest IP processes in the country, since our Constitution was written in 1945, there have been over 60 amendments to our Constitution. Essentially, our Constitution, which sits on all of our desks on the Senate floor, has become a glorified statute book. So HJR 31 would not change most of what I just mentioned. HJR 31 would still allow a direct initiative petition process, and we would still be able to amend our Constitution by initiative. What it would change is that it would increase, similar to your JR, Madam Chair, it would increase the required threshold of voters to 15%, up from 8%. and which require collection of signatures from all of our 8 congressional districts. And then approval of a constitutional change would require a 2/3 vote of the voters. Now, lest this seem like a unreasonably high threshold, I would note that even with the 2/3 vote threshold, since the year 2000, there have been 13 constitutional amendments that would have exceeded that threshold. Again, remember the U.S. Constitution requires ratification of 3/4 of the state to amend the federal Constitution. So I think our initiative petition process has been long in need of reform, and I look forward to working with you on that, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. First, I'm in favor of either of the SJRs, and just as a reminder, please indicate which one or both, and if you are for them. Anyone here to testify in favor of? We're not very popular today, Senator. Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition?
I'm in favor of one.
Okay, all right. We'll rewind. We do have someone to testify in favor of one of the one of the SJRs, if you want to come forward.
Sorry, I didn't want to rush to the front. So. Madam Chair, Scott R. Clark, Missouri, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft's office. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff there. Secretary apologizes for not being able to be here today, but did want to convey that we are in support of SJR 37 and would answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, one more time, anyone in favor of either? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition? If you'll just come forward. Just as a, please be sure to fill out a witness form and leave that on the desk. You've already done that? Great.
They're both against.
Excellent. Okay, just leave those on the desk, and if you want to have a seat, and just let us know your name, and you can proceed when you're ready.
My name is Kevin Hurdle. Can anybody hear me, or do I need a microphone?
If you don't mind, use the microphone.
All right, how's that?
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I want to say, I was at Senator Anders' office, and I talked to his aide. I was trying to get some time with him, because I want to talk to him about this bill and see why his reasons were for it, and see, if we can come up with some ideas. I mean, I know I reached out, but he never got back to me, so with that said, I got to come out against it. Now, let's go look at some of the reasons why they might be for it. Okay, you're talking about out-of-state interest and stuff like that, so you want to kind of raise the threshold to make it harder for them. The problem with that, when you make it harder for supposedly harder for them, you're going to make it impossible for the average citizen to put together a ballot initiative. Because those guys got the resources, they can jump through the hoops and make it happen. You might weed a couple out, but most of them get through. Whereas with us, you raise that threshold, forget it. In this ballot initiative, the whole purpose of it is when your representatives and senators, regardless of Democrat, Republican, aren't, say they're pushing a bill that's not in your best interest, or you want a bill and they don't want to do anything with it, that ballot initiative is how the citizens can put something up for a vote. And raising any kind of threshold, because it's hard enough as it is for the average person to do it. And then with COVID and everything, trying to go out and get signatures, good luck. And raising that threshold just kills it for us. Okay, now let's look at another one somebody brought up to me. They said something about every time you have these ballot initiatives and you change the Constitution, it keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker. Okay, well, look at it like that. When it comes to that and my power as a citizen to put someone on a ballot initiative, I really don't care if it gets thicker in a phone book. I want the ballot initiative. And like I said, if you raise the threshold, you kill us. And let's talk about where he wants to get it more, where you have to go in more districts and out in rural areas. I can understand that, but again, you have to look at it this way. I mean, just to get an average citizen to get down here to Jefferson City, to be able to just even to do this is almost impossible. People got to work, or they don't have the gas money, or they ain't got the time, or whatever. They don't live here, they don't work here, so when you start saying, okay, well, you got to go in all these different districts, Now, I know what he's saying, like, you just go down a corridor. Well, thing is, though, it still goes up for a vote, and these people can vote for or against it. So that's another reason why I want to do it, you know, why I'm against it. I mean, you're basically just making it impossible for the average citizen. You know, I could probably throw more reasons out, but I think I pretty much made my points. With that said, all I should say is, if you guys vote in favor of this and it passes, then you're basically annihilating my power as a citizen. I have to figure out another way to flex my power by, I don't know, maybe driving out to your districts, walking through your neighborhoods, slapping flyers on the doors, letting everybody know you voted for this stuff. I guess that's about it. Thanks. Have a nice day.
If you wanna wait just a second, do we have any questions for the witness? And I just wanna make one point, even if we pass this, this still has to go to a vote of the people to pass this as well.
Yeah.
So just wanna make that comment.
I understand that, but just the fact that you're even bringing this bill up kind of shows that you don't really understand the predicament of the average citizen. I mean, it shouldn't even be coming out of here.
Well, we appreciate your testimony. Thank
All
you,
right.
and thank you for being here today. Next up, in opposition to either one of the SJRs. Looks like you have your witness form.
I
Okay,
do.
very good.
I didn't have time to type this for you guys, so I apologize about that. My name is Sarah Wood. I am out of the 28th district, so I'm actually out of your district. In the past 6 years, I've had the honor of working with several post-partisan grassroots organizations on a state, national, and international level. My primary focus has mostly been human and family rights, but I've also been fighting back against big tech and our right to, free speech and the First Amendment. In this last 6 years, I've had the honor of working fairly closely with Senator Josh Hawley. In fact, just last April, I was at a Lincoln Days event dinner, and we had ample time and opportunity to discuss, our First Amendment right in the case against Julian Assange. Senator Hawley has always made himself very available to discuss these issues, and I think it's very clear by the astounding work that he's doing in the Senate that he's listening to his constituents, small voices like me. The initiative petition and referendum process is over a century old in Missouri. In this time, it's never been abused. It's brought many necessary changes to our state. The first one passing in 1920, which is requiring the rewriting of our state constitution. Followed by the funding for maintenance and construction of our state highways and roads, public employee benefits, Conservation Commission for fish, game, and forest resources, and limits on state and local taxes, term limits, campaign finance reform, and riverboat gambling, and the Missouri Plan, which, is how we elect our judges and has been adopted by several other states since then. In more recent years, I would, reference the Right to Farm Bill, which protects Missouri farmers and, our right to safe, healthy food. And I come from a farm town, I am a farmer, so I definitely support, activities like that. 30 years ago, there was a similar attack on this process and it happened. And when that happened, our then Governor Jay Ashcroft said, and I quote, "It is through initiative process that those who have no influence with elected representatives may take their cause directly to the people." As somebody who's gathered signatures on the ground in rural communities, it's really hard to meet the threshold requirement already because you have to gather double what has to be made to pass because of simple errors that people will do every day, like signing an abbreviation to their name or an incorrect address that doesn't match their voting record. Simple mistakes will disqualify a signature, as we all know. So I think it's very, very hypocritical of the General Assembly to want to increase the amount of required signatures to get something on the ballot. When 100 of the 197 legislators can approve changes to ballot language and reverse changes that have already been made to the Constitution that were brought forth to a large majority of votes by Missouri citizens. We already have very strict laws in place on things like clear ballot language, how we gather signatures, training of our petition circulators, filing costs, political action committees, and campaign finance reform. And sure, there might maybe need to be some more reforms made in some of those areas, but hindering our right to get something on the ballot is not the way to do that. Our democracy depends on the fundamental right of the people to be directly involved in their government. The initiative petition process is a sacred and trusted right of Missouri citizens, and the current proposed legislation would undoubtedly end this time-honored right. In the words of Senator Hawley, I'll end this with, the strength of America is and always in the unheard voices of its people across this great land. We're fighting for the rule of the people. We're fighting to be able to have our own say. We're fighting to be able to run our own government. So I would ask that you all vote no on both of these resolutions.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Next up in opposition to either.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Ron Calzone. I'm one of the directors of Missouri First. And I am here to actually testify in opposition to 37 and, in opposition to 31 and for informational purposes on 37. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine, thank
And
you.
I might add reluctantly for both, because I recognize, like both of you senators do, that we have a problem. It's almost suicidal to be able to amend the fundamental law of the land with a simple majority vote. And that needs to change. The question is how to change it. And before I go into that, I want to point out that I have a tool I will be emailing you. This is everybody in the committee and the sponsors. This is a relational database, an interactive database that lists all of the ballot measures since 1909. And it lets you parse and sort them based on percentage vote, whether they were legislatively proposed or proposed by initiative. And so you can play some what ifs with it. So
I
what
wish
if-
I would have had that before I went down for the last 20 years and did all that by hand.
I'm sorry. Well, this, I'm not sure, if you put it in a spreadsheet, how did you do that? This is much easier to use than a spreadsheet. And one of the things that will show you is what percentage the approval rates were. You know, so if it was proposed by the General Assembly, what was the approval rate as opposed to, and you can look at statutory versus constitutional amendments and so forth. So that's a tool I developed years ago when this issue began to be discussed here. And that's a good time to make this point. You know, this is nothing new. You know, these kinds of bills have been coming up in the General Assembly for many years. They always die. And I think they die because we're not adhering to principles, and we're not looking at you know, what is acceptable to the majority of people. I would like to start, if I might, with some principles. First of all, I want to point out that Article 1, Section 3 of the Missouri Constitution, you know, that's where it says the people declare, and each section starts with the word that. So the people declare that the people of this state have the inherent, sole, and exclusive right to regulate the internal government and police thereof, and listen, to alter and abolish their constitution and form of government whenever they deem it necessary to their safety, happiness, provided that such change is not repugnant to the Constitution of the United States. So then you go fast forward to Article 3, Section 49, where it says the people reserve the power to use the initiative petition process. So we're dealing with some very fundamental things here. You might be able to change Article 3, but you can't. You're not changing Article 1, Section 3, that says that the people have this inherent soul. And I know that, Senator, your measure, STR 37, doesn't touch the petition process per se. And I appreciate that, because that's not the problem. The petition process is where the people ask the question. The petition proponents are asking the question of the people of Missouri, the voters of Missouri, and the ratification process is where the people of Missouri answer that question. I don't think we have a problem with asking the question. Right now, my understanding is of all of the petitions that were submitted to the Secretary of State, there's only 3 at this point that have even a chance of making it to the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we really have a whole lot of them that are making it through that arduous process. And my friend Senator Onder said it's a very easy process. Well, in 2008, after the General Assembly passed what amounted to a placebo eminent domain reform bill, House Bill 1944, some of us recognized that we needed actually to amend the Constitution if you wanted to stop private use eminent domain. That's a 90-plus bipartisan issue. Everybody knew that if those changes were presented to the voters, they would say, we want to stop Stan Kroenke from taking Homer Turkakis' dental practice in Arnold and using it as part of a strip mall. And so I started a process. I was the proponent of 2 initiative petitions places in the Constitution you have to fix the eminent domain problem. I raised almost $1 million. This was a citizen, I'm a rancher and a businessman. I'm not, you see me up here a lot, but nobody pays me to be here, okay? So this was a citizen-driven initiative. We collected 428,000 signatures on those 2 ballot measures. We missed ballot access by about 3,000 in CD3. We qualified the other 5 CDs. We had 20,000 more signatures we needed in CD7 and CD5, but they weren't distributed right because you have actually 6 distinct ballot campaigns that you're running when you do a ballot measure. And I think Senator, did you go to all 8? You go to 8. So you would have 8 distinct. And so I'm telling you, it's not an easy process. If I knew what I knew now, we would have avoided the mistakes we made and we would have been on the ballot. But not everybody does. And so that issue, that was a 90% plus issue, never got presented to the people. And then we came back and we tried it in 2010 and again in 2012, and they were gunning for us then, and they tied us up in court, so we never could actually get, with ballot title challenges, we never could actually get to the street and collect signatures. So it's not an easy process for average citizens. It might be easy for George Soros,
Yeah.
but it's not. SJR 31 is going to be a road bump to George Soros. And as the first gentleman mentioned, it's going to kill a true initiative process. So let's back up then to what we are a constitutional republic, as the senator said. We are not a pure democracy. But let's look at what was said in the Federalist Papers about an American constitutional republic. There's 7 things that are characteristic of an American constitutional republic. I want to talk about 3 of them. One of them is that we have separations of powers. And I would suggest that's the legislative and the judiciary and the administrative branch, and then the 4th branch is the people, really, when you get right down to it. And another characteristic, the Madison and the other writers of the Federalist Papers said, is the power resides originally in the people, which is what Article 1, Section 2 of the Missouri Constitution says. And then, one of the other 7 things is that Madison and the others wrote is the right of the people to alter or abolish their government is a prime characteristic. And that's again what Article 1, Section 3 I read at the outset says. So if we do anything to make that unreasonably possible, then we're actually undermining what a republic is as defined in America. So I go back to my first agreement with you all that we have a problem. How should we fix that problem? I like the idea of 60% better than I do 2/3. That's why I'm testifying for informational purposes. If that 60% doesn't touch the petition process, which I think I've already said I think is too difficult, but is appropriately difficult now. It shouldn't be too easy. Would make it harder any easier. But I don't think 60% solves the problem. And again, if you go back and you look at this database I'm going to email to you, you'll see, look at what 60% would have done or would not have done. The Hancock Amendment would have failed with 60%. I think most of us kind of like the Hancock Amendment. Hancock 2 didn't even pass at all. So what should we do if we want to keep the garbage out of the Constitution? We don't want it to become a statute book. Well, just yesterday, I think it was, HJR 132 was filed by Representative Kidd in the House. And his proposal doesn't touch the petition. Oh, I need to mention this too. So both of these SJRs you're talking about deal with just a petition proposed amendment. Why should it be different if the legislature proposes it than if the petition proposes it? I know there'll be arguments for that. But if you put that on the ballot, it's going to fail. Because all of the opponents, and there'll be a lot of money behind it, are going to say, look at that arrogant General Assembly who wants a simple majority to pass their measures. They don't want a simple majority of the people. That's the question. But more important than that, think about Article 12 of the Missouri Constitution. That, senators, is where we can amend, we can change the entire Constitution with a constitutional convention proposed amendment or change. And if you do this, SJR 31 or 37, we will still be able to change the entire Constitution with a simple majority vote. In 2022, on the ballot will be a question for the people of Missouri: do you want to have a constitutional convention? And we do that every 20 years. So we could, a year from now, be in the middle of a constitutional convention. If amendments are proposed or a whole new constitution is proposed, a simple majority could change that. So back to HJR 132, just followed by Representative Kidd. It doesn't touch the petition process, but what it does do with the ratification process is say you have to meet two conditions. You have to have a simple majority vote statewide, like we do right now, but you would also have to have a majority vote in a majority of the state House districts. So Senator Onder rightly identified the fact that right now you can collect signatures and ignore large portions of the state. You can change the Constitution and ignore large portions of the state. And you will be able to with 60%, and you probably still can with 2/3. But you can't if you use what's called the concurrent majority principles. That's what HJR 132 does. The concurrent majority principle is why we have an electoral college. It's why we have 2 senators per state, no matter the size of the state. It's why each one of your Senate districts has the same number of people in it, and every senator, no matter what part of the state you're from, has the same say in this building, well, ostensibly. So I'm suggesting that if you use this concurrent majority concept, it's not only more just, it's not only more, not only does it get the job done like we want to get it done, but it's also more likely to pass when it's presented to the people. And I'll conclude my comments with that and open myself to questions.
Questions? Senator Bratton.
Just a brief question. Earlier in your testimony, you brought up the founding fathers and their ability to, or the people's right to abolish and take down any form of government. Now, it's clear that they weren't speaking on Missouri Constitution and initiative petition process. What were they referring to in the federal Constitution?
Well, no, okay, so they were probably referring to secession, frankly. That's what had just happened.
Right.
We just seceded from, but the Missouri Constitution.
I guess that's so you're reading the fact of that and correlating it into initiative petition process, but what processes there in the federal Constitution to, I guess, do that? Is there
Secession, you mean?
Well, not just secession. I mean, what other method is within the federal Constitution that would allow people to do that?
Well, Senator, I sense that you're painting me into a corner because we've had disagreements about holding a convention of states. and you're doing a good job of it. But
I'm just messing with you. So
that would be one.
Okay.
Yeah. So touche. But to answer your question with respect to my earlier quote, I was quoting out of Article 1, Section 3 of the Missouri Constitution. That was added to the Constitution in 1875. If you remember what happened between 1865 and 1860 and 1875, there was this war, and Missouri was under federal occupation, and Missourians were fed up with strong-handed government. And so you look at a lot of the provisions in the 1865 and 1875 Constitution, and you'll see that they are directly addressed at dealing with oppressive government. And if you look at Article 1, Section 3 of the Missouri Constitution, it makes it very clear that you're not dependent on government to change government. And that's what it says in Article 3, Section 49. It says that people reserve for themselves the power to use the initiative process independent of the General Assembly, it says. And that's, we're talking about declaration principles, Declaration of Independence principles. We're talking about the core principles that are established by God, about the right of the people to alter or abolish. I'm sorry, that was probably more answer than you asked for.
I guess there are 2 of us left standing. Well, thank you for your testimony.
I'm sorry for boring the committee out of the process.
Thank you, and I'll look forward to getting that tool, actually, that you mentioned. Next up, in opposition to either or both.
Madam Chair, Senator Bratton. Otto Payton on behalf of Missouri NEA. We will turn in forms in opposition to both joint resolutions. And honestly, there's really nothing left that I was thinking to say that hasn't already been brought up. possibly one thing, and that is, if we're thinking there's a problem, we would pretty much concur with the concerns that were brought forward by the previous witnesses in opposition. The one thing they didn't mention, which is also on our minds, is if we make a change to the Constitution by simple majority vote to say future changes to the Constitution can't be done that way, there's also, to a degree, a question of intergenerational equity that's involved, because we get to make that choice, and none of our succeeding generations will have that choice. You will have made that choice for them. Just wanted to add that into the mix, but we also concur with the other concerns that were raised. We're happy to answer questions now or are engaged in. This is serious business. There's a lot to think about. Many concerns have been raised here that are legitimate, but clearly there are reasons why folks have brought these forward. We're happy to engage in that conversation.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for
Thank you, Madam
testimony.
Chair.
Next up, in opposition to either or both.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nancy Copenhaver from Moberly, speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the state of Missouri. We are opposed to both of these SJRs, but I do want to say that yours of 60% is much more amenable than the 2/3 majority. We think that the initiative petition process is a very important process. It's been around for over 100 years. We think it has been used in many instances to further the causes that the citizens hold very dear. And we would hate to see those provisions taken away. We think this severely limits the idea of the initiative petition and makes it nearly impossible to use. I can't be any more eloquent than the people who have been before me. We've testified a number of times in the past few weeks in the House of Representatives.
They have quite a number of these types of bills, I noticed.
They have.
Yeah.
Anything further?
That's fine.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. Next up, in opposition. Just to get an idea, how many more to testify? Can I just, okay, I think we go back into session around 2 o'clock, so hopefully we can get through this.
Madam Chair, my name is Ron Beer, and here today on behalf of Jobs with Justice Voter Action, and I just want to go on the record in opposition to both these bills. I would also agree with what former Representative Copenhagen said about the 60%, that if we're going to do that, then we should look at both the initiative process and those joint resolutions that come out of the General Assembly. Because again, if you look at that database that perhaps Mr. Calzone provides to you, you'll see that the majority of those changes to the Constitution have been by the joint resolution, not by the initiative process.
Questions for the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next up, in opposition.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ousley with Empower Missouri. We are also in opposition to both resolutions. I just wanted to build on what Ron said a little bit. I brought the data with me. Since 1910, when the initiative petition was started, only 27 constitutional amendments have been passed through the initiative petition process. However, 182 have come from the lawmakers. So that's about 85% more come from the General Assembly than from the initiative petition process, and we don't want to create a double standard in the law where voters have less say than the lawmakers do. So I've written testimony here as well for you. That's it.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being
Thanks,
here
thanks
today.
both.
Next up, in opposition.
Afternoon, Madam Chair and Senator Clark Brown, speaking here in opposition to both measures for the Missouri State Council of SEIU, Service Employees International Union. Most of all the professional testimony has covered everything. I do want to make note it's respectful to see citizens here speaking on this issue too, and that's where our relationship is to this. We often participate in the initiative process with our union members, and that would be frankly historically with minimum wage that we passed here to set a new minimum wage rate in Missouri. We have a lot of substantial amount of rank and file working poor members that we have engaged in the Medicaid expansion program work, and of course, not to pass to the calendar, of course, the repeal effort that we were successful with the right to work. I'll just make one other comment outside of that. I think we already have a safety net that I see in process now. If General Assembly and lawmakers feel uncomfortable what the citizens choose to do by initiative process, we're seeing that very reaction now with, if I'm correct, HR 117 and the repeal of the Medicaid expansion. So I think there is a tool for lawmakers if you really sincerely feel that that's, you know, something that citizens did that is not right. You have your opportunity and privilege to do that through General Assembly, and then again ask the voters maybe in a different form of the question or something. So thank you for the opportunity to speak here.
Questions for the witness? See none, thank you for being here. Next up in opposition.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Sharon Galway-Jones here on behalf of Missouri Healthcare for All and also for the Jewish Community Relations Council. Unfortunately, Cheryl Addleston, who is their policy director, couldn't be here today and asked me to say a few words for them as well. With both of those organizations, the issue here is that the voice of the people need an escape valve when the legislature isn't doing the things that they want to see done, and the initiative petition process is that escape valve. And to cut it off in a way that is different for those citizens than it is for the legislature is unequitable, and also means that those people aren't going to have their voices heard, and that is something that we oppose.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here very much. Next up in opposition.
Hi there, my name is Maggie Mead. I'm the Legislative Director with Advocates of Planned Parenthood of the St. Louis region in Southwest Missouri. Just want to go on record, and also my colleague from Pro-Choice Missouri had to run to another hearing. I have their witness forms in opposition to both measures.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Anyone else in opposition? I believe you've already testified.
I just thought of something. Say something else. We put to a vote of the people.
We'll allow that if you want to come forward.
Great.
You're nice, Madam Chair.
I appreciate it, thank you. Because it's a question you brought up, so. You were telling me these resolutions were gonna go on ballot to the vote of people, and that's correct. But, with that said, let's take a look at what you guys have to do in order to put that on the ballot to a vote of people versus what I, as the average citizen, would have to do to put that on the ballot to a vote of the people. Well, first of all, you're here at your job, okay? Your job is to do this type of business. You don't have to take off work or try and find time after work to go out, you know what I'm saying, to do this, to get it all on the ballot. You're right here in this nice climate-controlled building, and most of your work's gonna be done here. Now granted, you still have to walk all around the building, talking to different representatives and senators, trying to get them to, agree to vote for it, and that's a hard process. I've been around here enough, I understand that, it's not easy. I'm not about to sit here and say, oh yeah, it'd be real easy for you to do that. You're gonna have a lot of opposition. With that said, now let's look at what I have to do. First of all, I'm not on the job getting paid to go out and get those signatures. And I'm not gonna be in kind of one area to go around getting people to, to sign the petitions, whatever. I'm gonna have to take off of work, try and find other people who can get the time off of work, who have the time to do it, and then we're gonna have to walk all over the state, going to different places. I mean, you guys be going door to door, not much happening. If I go out in the rural area and knock on someone's door, who knows, I might get shot at. But, that's kind of a joke. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make it's for you guys to put this on the ballot, go vote of people. I'm not gonna say it's easy, it's hard. But what we would have to do as citizens, to do the same very thing, be almost impossible, especially if you raise that threshold. That's all I just wanna say. You're killing us. That's it.
I appreciate your other comments.
I don't know, sometimes I don't think, maybe you don't understand, you get so caught up in your own job and you're working around your own people, and suddenly you kind of forget what we have to go through for it. And that ballot initiative, again, I know he was bringing up, some states don't have, well, that sucks for them, but I wouldn't want to live there and have to not have ballot access. But that's not a reason, to raise the threshold here. In fact, that's one of the great things about Missouri. We have a ballot access. Again, because you got Democrats and Republicans. Most countries have multiple parties. So what I'm trying to say is there's going to be times when people are going to want to put someone on a ballot that, the political parties aren't going to want. And of course, that's our ballot initiative. That's how we get on there. And you're making it impossible.
Okay.
That's all I want you guys to take under consideration.
Senator Bratton.
Just to briefly inquire, now, I realize you've taken off and you've got to, come up here and testify, but to get elected to these positions, it's basically exactly what you have to do for an initiative petition. I have to go door to door, I have to put in work without getting paid, having my family every single weekend to get elected to these positions.
Yep.
I have a company as well that I step away from, so, we have to be sensitive to the people in which we represent, and also a representative form of government. That's where you have the capability also to run for these positions, to take this seat as well. So you do have avenues, even on top of an initiative petition process. So, we also have to do it, but it's more so on the front end aspect of, exactly what you do for the initiative petition process. So.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, want me to go? All right, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because you're right as far as how tough that is. And you're doing that in your district. Whereas the rest of us, we got to figure out a way to go all around the state. And plus, we have to get signatures put on. The point I'm trying to make is, you just brought up how tough it is, and that's just for you to go around your district, to get elected. Now you just multiply that, because it's going to be even that much harder for us to go all the way around the state and try and get people to sign up for us. The point I'm making is, you even said it yourself, it's a hard thing to do. So why are you making it harder? When he raises that threshold, that's not going to make it any harder. It's not raising the threshold for you to go around your district to try and get people to vote for you. And plus, that's kind of two different things. Getting people to vote for you so you can come in here in office is a little bit different from us, we the people, trying to get a ballot initiative to put something on the ballot. I guess I would kind of say it's like comparing apples and oranges. It's kind of two different things. But, I appreciate you bringing it, and I agree. That's a tough thing to do. I've worked in political elections and stuff. You got to grind. Especially in Independence where I live, that's Harry Truman's country. Just the history of it. It's real aggressive and competitive. And I did a lot of walking and stuff. But you know what? With that said, that's part of your job to get elected. That ballot initiative, it's not ballot initiative. That's what the citizen has, when they have no other recourse through the representatives and senators to put something forward. And it's going to be even harder. Like I said, I've worked campaigns. I've probably been to every door in Independence, over the years. And it's tough. I agree with you, man. It's a grind, but compared to trying to go out and get a ballot initiative, especially after they raise the threshold, this is nothing personal. Don't take it hard or anything. Like I said, I tried to get a hold of you because I wanted to sit down and talk to you, see where you're coming from, see if we can work on some things, but I guess what they call that, the 7-1 to 6-2 thing, all that going on, you probably weren't able to get back to me, so I just had to come down here and do it this way. It would have been great, we could have sat down and talked about this. That way I wouldn't have to come down here and just be against it, maybe something could have got worked out, but right now, like I said, you're right, it's tough, but then you should be able to appreciate just how much tougher it's gonna be trying to get someone on the ballot as a citizen, especially with the threshold raise. Because it's not gonna raise your threshold to go about in your district, get people to vote, or do you disagree?
Well, it's just a different process, and so, I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, you can go about it different avenues as well of reaching out to somebody in here to sponsor something in which you're trying to advocate for. So, I mean, there's different avenues in which you can also directly, you know, do and be the change that you want to be. It doesn't always have to be an initiative petition process. But we, on our end of it, we see, you know, it being taken advantage of by certain groups that can go and spend, you know, tens of millions of dollars on an initiative petition process that stifles your capability. So that's what we're struggling with. But to say we're locking people out, I disagree with that. So, but I appreciate your testimony, your fervor, and your passion. So thank you for coming down.
We thank you for your additional comments.
All right.
Anyone else? I think we've gotten through all the ones in opposition. Is there anyone here wishing to testify for informational purposes only?
Madam Chair, since I am tardy, I just